In the winter of 2010, I was going through a rough time. My husband and I separated in the summer, and it was my first Christmas without him in over a decade. We were high school sweethearts who grew up in a small town. We married young and had our daughter when we were 20. We had a lot of growing up to do, and he decided that he wanted to see what else was out there and focus on himself, which devastated me. My daughter, Annie, has always been a very sweet and well-behaved girl. She's a true blessing and the light of my life. She was surprisingly handling the separation well. Annie and I were staying at the house I inherited from my grandma, which was in a rural town in upstate New York. Annie was mostly excited about celebrating 2 Christmases that year and doubling her presents. During that time, I had to start working a 9-to-5 job and really wanted to be more financially secure for my daughter. Money was very tight, but I knew I could pull through and surprise her with something big that year. I asked her what she wanted for Christmas, and she looked down. She said she wanted our family back together. I told her that her dad and I were going through a rough patch and needed time apart. Then she slowly looked up at me and said she really wanted a puppy for Christmas, and I considered it, since it would provide emotional support to the both of us and brighten up our lives a bit. As a treat, I'd take her to the adoption center to see if there were any puppies. We'd also spend evenings browsing the internet to see if there were any near us. Her eyes always sparkled when we found a dog that she liked. The larger breed seemed to be her favorite. Annie was around 4 years old and still getting used to sleeping in her bed by herself. I think that was one of the toughest parts about the separation for her, was not having both her mom and dad kiss her goodnight. She also didn't like sleeping in her big girl bed and would come to my bed in the middle of the night if she had a bad dream. I didn't mind. It was nice to not have to sleep alone. One night, I put her to bed and kissed her goodnight. Before I left, I saw that she had a frown on her face. I asked her what was wrong, and she said that Christmas wouldn't be the same that year. I hugged her and said that it might not be, but that I'd do anything in my power to make it an unforgettable Christmas, and put a smile back on her face. As soon as I left her room, I felt devastated. I really did want to give her the best Christmas possible, and hoped that I wasn't failing as a mother. I headed to bed and decided that I would get her a puppy this weekend, while she was at her dad's place. After my glass of wine and browsing the adoption center's website, I passed out. And as expected, in the middle of the night, Annie came to my room and hopped into bed with me. The next morning, I woke up to an empty bed. Maybe I dreamt that she came to my bed last night. Annie ran to my room and started jumping on my bed. She was in a very cheerful mood. Confused, I asked her what was up. She said that she loved her Christmas present. Huh? I asked her what she was talking about. She said that she knew she was getting a dog and that I could give her her new friend now. Annie had an overactive imagination, so maybe she dreamt this. I told her okay and confirmed that she was getting a dog. She hugged me while telling me that I was the best mom in the world, and said that I could stop hiding her present now. Honey, you'll have to be a little more patient. I didn't even find a furry friend for her yet. That day, I found a dog at one of the websites I was browsing. I was planning on meeting the little guy after work the next day. During dinner, Annie was beaming with excitement as she started coming up with potential names for the dog.
I like Boo. Or maybe Buster.
And after dinner, she was organizing her room when I came in to get her ready for bed. She said the dog's bed will be right next to hers, that he'll have his own space when he comes home. She looked at me and said that she can now sleep in her room because her dog will guard her, and that she won't bother me in the middle of the night anymore. We said our goodnights, and I headed to bed. And again, I woke up in the middle of the night because Annie couldn't sleep. After she opened my door, I waited for her to snuggle up next to me. Annie, we have to get up early in the morning. You have to be at your dad's place by 10. Hurry up and get in bed. Annie. Then I felt something wet on my foot. I pulled my comforter off my face. Then I saw it at the foot of my bed. It was a creature unlike anything I'd ever seen. It was licking my feet with its abnormally long tongue. I screamed. Then it screeched. It crawled towards me and just stared at me. I yelled at it to leave and grabbed the closest thing to me, which was a lamp. I smacked it, and it screamed again with its shrill voice while cowering. Annie ran in and told me to stop, that I was hurting her friend. I pulled her away from the creature, and she started crying. It looked at us one last time, then jumped through my window. Annie cried more, saying that that was her dog and that I hurt him. I was very confused and scared shitless. I asked her questions. Apparently, the creature had visited her in her room the past 3 nights. I tried to explain to her that that creature wasn't a dog, that I didn't know what the heck it was, but it wasn't safe. And that made her cry even more.
First Dad left, and now Boo left.
Well, I guess that was the name she decided on. She ran to her room and locked the door. She didn't want to talk to me. I tried to tell her that I was going to meet an actual dog for her tomorrow when she was at her dad's, but she didn't care anymore. Okay, honey, get some sleep. We'll talk about this tomorrow. I was still terrified and couldn't sleep that night. Annie was still giving me the silent treatment when I drove her to her dad's place in the morning. Before getting out of the car, she said,
Don't bother looking for a dog. I don't want one anymore. You'll just hate that one too.
She slammed the car door and ran into his house. My husband asked me what happened. But of course, he didn't believe me and told me that I really needed to stop drinking. I rolled my eyes and argued with him. I only have a glass of wine before bed now, and I'm working full-time to be the best mom for Annie. I went back home and had a mini breakdown. I was also scared of being by myself in the house. So before going to bed, I made sure all the lights were on, that all the doors and windows were locked, and that I had a few weapons close to me. It was snowing heavily outside. I couldn't sleep that night, thinking about that creature going near my daughter. Then I heard screeches coming from the distance. I grabbed the kitchen knife and listened closely. Then all the lights went off. I tried to turn on the lamp next to my bed with no luck. I got up and tried to turn on the lights. Nothing. The hallway lights also didn't work. Shit, it was a blackout. How convenient. The storm must have caused a power outage. I wanted to check if my next-door neighbors were also affected. I was terrified while trying to find the front door of my house. Luckily, I found it and only managed to trip over something once. As soon as I closed the door and turned around, I saw it again, there, staring at me. I froze for a few seconds, debating whether I should run back inside the house or drive away in my car. I looked into its eyes and felt terror in every fiber of my being. I had no idea what it wanted from me. I slowly walked backwards to my car while it opened its mouth and let out a screech. The adrenaline rush kicked in and I got in my car, but before closing the door, it scratched my arm. I managed to drive off just in time. I went straight to my husband's place because he was the closest family I had, and I really needed to be with my daughter. He opened his door and immediately saw my bloody wound. I told him what happened while shaking. He disinfected and bandaged up my arm. And he told me that I should stay with him while I tried to figure out what to do with my house. I wasn't safe there anymore. Annie walked in and saw her dad bandaging up my wound. She ran over and hugged me. She was happy that the 3 of us were together. While we were embracing, she smiled and quietly said,
Even though you scared Boo away, Boo still granted my Christmas wish. So, I'm going to wish for this every year, forever and ever.